Hi, and welcome to lesson number 4 in my series on the guitars of Sonny Boy Williamson. The guitars style you would have heard or do hear behind Sonny Boy on his chess recordings in the 50s and 60s. So far we've done bass rhythms, we've done chords including the use of ninth chords. We've also taken a look at some of the double stops that Sonny Boy uses and now, or that Sonny Boy's guitar players use. Now it's time to get into some of the single string fills and runs and various fills that are used. I think most of these are played by Robert Jr. Lockwood, but there's also stuff played by Luther Tucker too. And so I'm just going to start with one particular song that has a great number of examples of what I'm talking about here. It's called I Don't Know. And it's a Sonny Boy song. When you listen to it on the record, it sounds like it's in C sharp or D sharp rather. And it's, I don't know if that's it or not, it might be in C, but I'm going to play it in C just so it's easier to find your way around the fret and easier for me to teach it. So in the key of C, most of the song he uses a sliding ninth chord, so he's got this rhythm going, he's playing. Does a stop time and it goes to a double stop. And then in this tune, when he goes to the 5 to the 4 and back to the 1, he does a lot of cool stuff, and this is where we'll start our fills. Let me just play first example. I call this the Lockwood fill, or even a Magic Sam fill, because you hear Magic Sam do stuff like this. I give them names based on songs and guitar players to help me remember them. So when he gets to the 5 in the song, let me just go back to the 1 and then I'll go right to the 5. We'll do the turnarounds here in a separate lesson. So what I'm doing is I'm going to my G chord. That's my first position bar chord, and I'm just playing over that G. And this is a lick you hear Magic Sam use in Sweet Home Chicago, and you hear a lot of blues guitar players use this. But here's what I'm doing. On the 5th fret of the 1st string, I'm going to go to the 3rd fret of the 1st string. Then I'm going to go to the 2nd string on the 5th fret. I'm going to bend up, and then back, and then to the 2nd fret of the 2nd string. And then I wind up on the 4th fret of the 3rd string. Or you mix up, you can vary the rhythm and the melody on this quite a bit. Here's what I think he's playing on I Don't Know. Where I just hold that bend. Like that. And then he just moves that same lick down to the F. Here's my F chord. And then back to the 1. So the whole lick, whoops, let me do it again. And that is a lick you can use in that situation, go over to the 5 to the 4 to the 1. You could also play it over a 4 chord, and you hear Lockwood do that a lot. So let's say we're doing a tune in G. And when we go to the 4, we go back to the 1. So you can use that as a solo, or you can use that as a fill behind the vocal, or even behind a harmonica solo. So that's a nice little fill you can use a lot. Another lick which he can do, going from the 5 to the 4 to the 1, which he does in that same song, I Don't Know, goes like this. I'm going to start on the 1, but then I'm going to go to the 5. just playing over the chords, the G to the F, playing with the changes. And I'm doing this lick. And the way I do that is I've got my, first finger on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string. I've got my 2nd and my 3rd finger on the 4th and 5th frets of the 3rd string. And I'm bending up. You know this lick? Chuck Berry, Pee Wee Creighton type thing. I'm going to bend up. And I'm going to get the 1st string too on the 3rd fret. Then I'm going to go from the 6th to the 3rd fret on the 2nd string. Then I'm going to go to the 5th to the 3rd fret on the 1st string. Then back to the 6th fret of the 2nd string. Then I'm going to get the 5th fret of the 2nd string and then do a hammer-on pull-off. Kind of like that. So that's the lick. And I just move that up or down and play over it. And that's another way you can go from the 5 to the 4 to the 1. Lockwood does that lick a lot. He does a lot of variations of it. There's a tune he does with Johnny Shines called "I'm So Glad You're Mine" or something like that, or "I'm so glad I found you, so glad I found you." And every time he goes to the 5 to the 4 to the 1, he does a different variation on that same lick. So that's one you hear in the song "I Don't Know" by Sonny Boy. But you can do lots of different ideas going over the chord from the 5 to the 4 to the 1. So that is another single string lick you hear in the song "I Don't Know." He's also got a shorter one he uses as a fill. And a lot of times when Lockwood's playing these ninths, in between he'll throw in little single string runs, and we'll work on some of those later. But in this particular tune, "I Don't Know," he does something like this. So the song goes to the 4. He does something like that in between before he goes to the 5. Then he does a little fill like this. So those are a couple single string runs. They're both based on the same idea. So let me show you both of those. The first one, that's the first one. And he's doing it same little idea that we did up here when we were doing that 5-4-1 lick. It's really almost the same thing. So he bends up on the 3rd string with his 2nd finger and 3rd finger on the 9th and 10th frets. And his 1st finger is on the 8th fret of the 2nd string. Now this time he doesn't go to the 1st string. He doesn't do this. Instead he goes right to the 11th fret of the 2nd string. And then to the 8th and 10th frets on the 1st string. And back to the 11th fret of the 2nd string. And then that same little hammer-on pull-off thing. So the lick in context from the 4. Whoops. Let me do that again. Timing's a little off, but that's the idea. And then at the end of a verse, sometimes he'll do a little single string turnaround type thing like this. And so he's really doing that same basic lick. But then he's going on to the 11th fret of the 1st string and bending it just a little bit. I've got all 4 fingers on going from the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th fret on the 1st string. Then I'm going to the 8th fret of the 1st string, to the 11th, 10th fret on the 2nd string, And then I'm just hammering on, pulling off on the 10th fret of the 2nd string with my first finger on the 8th fret. Let me play that for you again. Something like that. So he does, you know, a million different things, but I'm just trying to show you some ideas of these little fills that he throws in between the 9th chords and between all the other stuff that he does. Okay, another idea is a single string run that he does when he's on the 4 chord, going to the 1. He does this on several different tunes. And let me show you in the key of G. Actually, let me show you in the key of F, and I'm going to put a capo on just to show you. I think the songs he uses this, he uses a capo. So I'm playing in F. Okay, it sounds like this. So he's doing a song, let's say he's playing in the key of F. So it's just a little fill he plays over the 4. And he can throw different licks. Sometimes he just lets it hang. And I'll show you another variation on this in a minute. But here's the idea. Here's the 1 chord, which is with the capo or F. When we go to the 4 chord, which is our B flat. And what I'm doing is just playing over that, and I'm sliding in with my 2nd finger onto what is now the 6th fret of the 3rd string with the capo, but I'm just right over my B flat chord. Then I'm doing this chromatic run from the 7th, 6th, 5th fret on the 1st string. You can do a double stop here on that slide, but it sounds to me like a lot of times he's just playing the 1 string. And then when you're playing in the key of F, out of this E position, this is a blues box. So I'm just doing this 3rd and 5th frets on the 1st string and the 2nd string. Actually, I'm playing at the 5th fret on the 2nd string. So the whole lick. And then back into the 1st, the 1. You might do something like this. Which I'm going to show you here in just a minute. So that idea of going from the 4 chord and doing this, you hear that in a lot of the Sonny Boy songs. And so again, slide into it at the B flat chord, which is going to be the 6th fret of the 3rd string, and then up here, so I'm just going. Sometimes he just lets that hang. Sometimes he adds a note. He goes back to the 1. And then he goes to the 5. And then I'm doing the same lick. And here's where I play something a little different. So this is my first position, E. I'm just hammering on, pulling off open strings, and putting my fingers down on the 1st or the 2nd fret of the 1st and the 2nd string. Open. Open. I think it's something really close to that. This is All My Love in Vain, Love in Vain is the name of the song. All My Love in Vain is the Robert Johnson. This is the Sonny Boy. And then he goes. So I'm going open 2nd string, onto the second fret of the second string, open first string, then I'm bending up on the second fret of the first string, and then going back, just open, second string, second fret of the second string, open first string, second fret of the first string, open first string. So you hear this. Something like that. And that's a little lick that you hear on Love in Vain and a couple other of his songs where there's a tune called Work With Me where he uses the same lick. So that's really that single string lick, and then I'm going right into a turnaround using the same idea with the single strings. Now you can do that in any key if you move the capo, or without a capo. Let's say we're playing in G, and we want to do that same lick, so when the tune is on the 1, and then when we go to the C, the 4, just using that same lick, just don't have the open string to help me. So if I tried that turnaround, whoops, have to slide that hand down pretty quick. And play something like that. So that is another single string idea for a fill that you can use. Now another one that you hear quite a bit in Lockwood's playing is when he uses these fills over the ninth chords. And he does this with a second position ninth chord. I'm going to show you in G since you hear this, or let's try an F. It might be a little easier. So when he goes to a ninth chord, actually let's do it in G. Because then I can show you in the context of a tune that we're going to talk about here in a minute. A tune called Cross Your Heart. And what he does sometimes is when he goes to the 1, let's say the song is in G, and he goes to the 1, he'll play something like this over that. And what he's doing is just playing over the ninth chord. So that's a G9. First finger is on the 10th fret of the 5th string, second finger is on the 9th fret of the 4th string, then my ring finger is flattened out on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd strings at the 10th fret. Now sometimes it sounds like he'll slide up into it. Sometimes it almost sounds like he's keeping the chord and just using his pinky, but that's kind of hard to do. So more realistically, I think what he's doing is sliding and just playing using his fingers. So here I am on the 10th to 12th frets on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd strings. Something like that. And you can play it faster, slower. And it's just really over this G chord. There's the G9. And you'll hear that in Little Walter's guitar players too. They do the same idea. And you can do that in a lot of different places. So if, let's say we're playing in C and the song goes to the 5. So we'll say we're playing in C. Then we go to the 5. We can even do it over the 4 chord. And use the fill there. So it's just out of the second position, 9th chord. He's throwing that in. Sometimes you hear him scrape. That one is less common, and I'm not even sure if I heard that from the Sonny Boy stuff. It's a real simple little fill that sounds cool. So that's another one out of a second position 9th chord. Let's see what we got next. Sliding double stops. This is another type fill that you'll hear Lockwood use, or Luther Tucker, whoever's doing this. Let's say we got a song in the key of C. And a lot of times they'll use the sliding 9th chord. But sometimes he'll do this 10th fret of the 9th string, 2nd fret of the 2nd string, 1st fret of the 1st string, 2nd fret of the 2nd string, 1st fret of the 1st string, 2nd fret of the 2nd string, 1st 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 fret of the 2nd string, 1 double stop. Almost like a soul, Memphis soul type thing. And what I'm doing, here's my bar chord. Just taking the first and third string of that with my first and second finger. And you'll hear that as a fill. So instead of playing the whole chord, play something along those lines. You hear him do it in G. And what I'm doing is taking my first finger, if I'm playing in C, on the 8th fret of the first string. My second finger is on the 9th fret of the third string. And I'm just picking third to first. Third to first to third, and then sliding down as I pick the first string. And so that's a fill you hear him, Lockwood, use behind Sonny Boy sometimes instead of the sliding ninth chord. Another little trick that I've heard, I can't remember the song exactly, is when he's playing that over the 4 chord. So let's say we have a song in G, and he gets to the 4, so instead of playing the C, 9th chord, he'll play that double stop. And then go into like a little single string run right out of it. And he's playing that in the G position. So he goes from the C, the 4 chord, and he goes right up from that slide. That first finger is in that blues box in the G. So he plays something like that, just the idea. So let me do something a little more sophisticated. So that's the idea. He's going from that slide into the single string run. And that's the concept that he does there. So that's another one. Let me see what else I got here. Some other cool single string runs. There's one tune called Cross My Heart, which just has a bunch of them in it. And the tune is in the key of C. And when he's playing over the 1, he does something like this. That little fill. So if I'm playing in C, this is in my blues box, I've got my pinky on the 11th fret of the 2nd string. I'm doing that staccato picking. And he does something, I'm not sure exactly what he's doing there. He's doing a hammer-on pull-off with his first finger anchored on the 8th fret of the 2nd string. Then he's hammering on, pulling off the 2nd string at the 10th fret. And then he's just going something on the 3rd string. I'm not sure if he's doing that, getting the 10th fret of the 3rd string, and then doing a little hammer-on pull-off on the 9th fret with the first finger anchoring at the 8th fret on the 3rd string. So, something like that. Or is he just doing it on the 10th fret? Like this. And then he ends up with the first finger on the 8th fret of the 4th string, and then hammering on, pulling off the 10th fret. So the whole lick. Whoops, let me do that again. Then he goes into the 4, which is a add 9th chord. So the whole thing in context. He does this, he uses the sliding 9th, and he does it twice, right into it. And then, so he uses the single string run to transition into the 4 chord, into the chord change. And you'll hear Lockwood do that a lot on these tunes, and even Luther Tucker too, with some of the songs. How do you tell the difference between the two of them? If you're really into this, I think Lockwood is the more jazzy sounding player, and Tucker's the more raw, kind of traditional blues box bends and stuff. I don't know. I don't. I just know they both played on a lot of Sonny Boy songs, but I'm just showing you what they're playing. Okay, some other ideas. There's a tune called The Unseen Eye, where he does something else that's kind of cool, which is use the really high notes as a fill. A lot of blues guitar players do this, and I like this. So let's say he's playing in the key of G. He's going to go down to the 15th fret of the first string and do this little, another again, the staccato pick, and maybe slide it down, something like that, before it goes into the 4. So if, let's say we're playing in G, this is my G ninth chord, and I'm doing my typical slides. And then before I get ready to go to the 4 chord, I go down up to that note, before I go up to the, or down to the C ninth, which is the 4 chord. So again, one tune he does that, and he throws in that, which is just, I'm playing the G blues box way up here at the 15th fret. I've got my first finger on the 15th fret of the 3rd string, and then I'm hammering on, pulling off with my second finger on the 16th fret. So he does something like this. And he goes to the 4 chord. So that's another Sonny Boyish type fill, and that's something you can throw in again before you switch chords. Now looking at my list, I've put down a big list of all these different fills. There's lots, but another idea, you hear in a couple songs that he plays in F with a capo. And so if we're playing in F, I've got a blues box up here that uses a lot of open strings, like that. And he does this, sorry, losing my tuning just a hair. Let's just go ahead with that. So in the tune called, there's one called 99, and he plays the, then over the 1 he plays something like this. Plays a little fill in that scale. Something using those kind of notes. So I've got open E, open B, or open 1st, open 2nd string, and then I'm bending up on the 3rd string at the 2nd fret and hitting my open 2nd string. And I'm just playing that scale. Stuff like that. That's what he's playing, all kinds of different versions of that, but he's just playing within that. You have to listen to the recordings to get the exact notes. I'm not going to do that right now, but that's the idea. And he stops it sometimes, he plays it all the way through, just varies. Along those same lines, he does that in the song called Born Blind too. That's the fill. He uses that. He plays something like that over the 1 chord. Then another idea, a tune called Love in Vain. I'm going to scoot this up to the G. He's playing the tune in G. And then over it, he's playing these little fills. And he plays that type of thing over the 1. So the tune goes to the 4. And when it comes back to the 1, and what I'm doing, open 2nd string, 2nd fret of the 3rd string. There's one little lick using the open 2nd string, 2nd fret of the 3rd string, 2nd fret of the 4th string, and then just hammering on, pulling off the 1st fret of the 3rd string. And sometimes he adds the open 1st string to that. And that's just a little fill lick that you'll hear him playing when he plays with the capo in F and also in G. Sometimes a little variation of that. So this time I'm going open second string, second fret of the third string, open second string, and then back to the second fret of the third string. Then I can go to that hammer on pull off, or I can go all the way through to the open. So in context, you hear the rhythm guitar playing. Something like that over the one. And that's another little single string variation that you hear in a lot of Sonny Boy Williamson stuff. So there are some single string ideas, lots of them. And one thing that I should mention is when you're playing those fills, if you want to play them, make them sound interesting. Not just to play, so let me play an A, not just to play the straight strings like this. Try to throw in some hammer-ons, pull-offs, some things like that to make it more interesting. That's what you hear Lockwood doing on a lot of those types of fills. So, hope this helps. I just kind of did this off the top of my head, but I have been listening to a lot of the Sonny Boy stuff, and those are things that I hear being played. Again, if you hear something different, or if I'm doing something wrong and you guys know how to do this, let me know, because I'll always want to learn new stuff. Come back with the next part, part 5. We're going to take a look at turnarounds, and there's like a ton of cool turnarounds that you can hear in the playing of Robert Lockwood and Luther Tucker behind Sonny Boy Williamson.